And with 2 meetings remaining in our 113th year, welcome San Diego Rotary Club 33 members, our honored guests, and those watching on Zoom to the 33rd oldest, the 10th largest, and the first best Rotary Club in the world. Our chair of the day today from the 2021 Rotary class is retired Congresswoman, the Honorable Susan Davis. Yeah, yes you can. Susan was honored to serve the public as a school board member from '83 to '92, state legislator from '94 to 2000, and congressional representative from San Diego from 2001 to 2020. She grew up in Richmond, California, attended UC Berkeley, and graduated with a degree in sociology, later earning a master's in social work from the University of North Carolina. She was the first executive director of the Aaron Price Fellows Program, inspiring young people to build strong communities. Susan's a proud wife, mother, and grandmother of 3. She values having had an impact in people's lives and is committed to engaging in San Diego's quest for opportunity and equity for all. Please welcome the Honorable Susan Davis.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here. You know, I am so honored to introduce California's Secretary of State, San Diego's most sought-after speaker and outstanding leader, and my former school board colleague and longtime friend. So let me first share a story with you. Many years ago, I think it was 1988, I attended one of the first People's Breakfast in honor of Martin Luther King. It was a small venue, attended really by a fraction of the audiences today at these events. When the guest speaker was introduced, the applause was cordial, but by the concluding remarks, the audience bolted from their seats, truly unable to contain their applause by whooping and hollering. I don't know if our guest speaker remembers this, but I sure do. And that's why I'm happy to be here today. That individual, Dr. Shirley Nash-Weber, who never fails to inspire, is an orator who no speaker wants to follow in any audience presentation, and they always let the audience know that. To acknowledge Dr. Weber's speaking skills is only part of who she is, because what she does and the result of her advocacy exemplifies an exceptionally talented leader with integrity and moral clarity, who rose to ever higher leadership responsibilities. Her genuine passion and tireless quest for equality and fairness in all sectors of life have resulted in major reforms in education and criminal justice. Her list of public policy pursuits is extensive, and many can attest to the degree of difficulty that she tackles with resulting practical outcomes. It's impressive. And at this time, when voting rights are being questioned, having Shirley bring her lived experience and years of study to the Office of Secretary of State is our good fortune. Please welcome to Rotary a woman from Hope, Arkansas, one of 8 children born to sharecroppers who left Arkansas after being threatened by a lynch mob, a mother of 2 adult children, the wife for 29 years of the late Honorable Daniel Weber, a grandmother to 3 children, a former school board president, a state assemblywoman with multiple chairwoman positions, California's first Black Secretary of State, and only the 5th African American to serve as a state constitutional officer in California's 173-year history. Thank you, Shirley, for giving of your time and insights to be with us today. We look forward to your remarks. Dr. Weber, everyone.
Well, good afternoon. One more time, you guys forgot who I am. Good afternoon. Okay, I always love talking to a living audience. I am honored to be here today and to be with my good friend Susan Davis. We fought a lot of battles together for health clinics and equal opportunity and access for kids when she was on the school board. And she was truly a worthy ally, and we fought a lot of good things with Tom Pazon and Bertha Pendleton. And it was an extremely important part of my life as a university professor to be able to go into the school district and spend 8 years advocating for young people. I'm honored to be here today, and I'm really humbled because there's so many of you who've done so much over the years. You have served in so many capacities, and your love for San Diego, your love for this nation, for the things that we stand for is unmatched in terms of your ability to give. When I travel around the world, I always see this little wheel somewhere on a wall, and I know I'm in good hands because the Rotary is present. And it's great to see you all here. I'm just glad to see so many of my friends I haven't seen in a while. Being in Sacramento and doing so many things, sometimes I miss so many of you when I'm traveling about, and every now and then I come into a room like this and I see all the faces and folks are still healthy and moving forward and doing the things that are right and that are good. I come today Michael didn't tell me what to talk about, you know Michael. He just said, I just want you to be there because this is my last official meeting as president of the Rotary, and I want you to be there. And when Michael asks you, you generally try to get there. So I immediately contacted my scheduler and said, I don't know what I'm doing on the 20th of June anywhere else, but I know that at 12 o'clock I'll be at the Rotary. So please organize my schedule appropriately so I can fly in and out or do whatever I gotta do so I can be there for Michael Brunker. And I say that because Michael is a rare person. He's one that we all believe in. He's a person who brings hope and light into areas that nobody believes it can be before. You know, I was the first speaker at the Martin Luther King breakfast, and that's what Susan was talking about some 30 years ago or long, I can't remember how long it's been. And I was just a young professor at San Diego State, you know, making my way, and Mr. DeWitt asked me to come and speak at the Martin Luther King breakfast. But Michael eventually came to also Jackie Robinson Y, and he gave us new hope, new light, and turned our community into a community that can and not one who can't. He had a vision that we all caught a part of. He made us all work for it, as he's done with you. I see the long line of people around here who are working even harder than you've done before. But he brought that kind of hope and spirit that's so essential to communities, particularly communities that have not had people with hope before. I always say I'm the girl from Hope that had no hope. And that was so true of that city where I was born. And hope is essential to people's growth and development. Without it, you flounder. You're like the broken-winged bird that cannot fly. You're the broken-winged bird because you're floundering from place to place when you don't have hope and you don't have light and you don't have an opportunity to move forward. And so, Michael, you have done that for our community in so many ways, and I want to thank you for it. Thank you for the service here, but thank you for just being the kind of person that all of us in San Diego would like to become. One that blends into every community, one that embraces everyone, one that has no shame about people or where they're from. I remember when you called me about your new heritage in terms of your ancestry, and you were excited about being this guy with all this background. Some would have been ashamed, some would have been, oh my God, for all my life I thought I was white. But you were not that person. You knew whatever you had was wonderful, and you used it and embraced it and made us all feel proud of who we are. And so I thank you for being that light and for always sharing all your stuff with me and pictures and your family and those kinds of things. It makes me know that we can all be proud. I'm a sharecropper's daughter from Hope, Arkansas. I always say that. I recently received the UCLA's 2024 Alumni of the Year Award for Inclusion and Diversity. And in receiving that award, I say to people, I am a sharecropper's daughter, because I stand with thousands and thousands of people behind me, holding me up, praying for me, working with me as a kid from the Pueblos of Los Angeles, a family that was poor, father never allowed to go to school, a grandfather who never got a chance to vote in this country, even though he was born in this country. He was one generation from slavery, my grandfather, and he died before the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And so my father never voted until he was forced to leave Arkansas to save his life and save the life of his children and his wife. And so he eventually came to California to vote. And we lived in the Pueblos, the projects of Los Angeles that had just been built in the 50s. And it's interesting to me, they were cinder block houses, real strong walls. And in those places, I went by the other day, they're still there. Those walls and the metals and the steel that was there that built those communities. But in that whole issue of being in that community, coming out of Hope, Arkansas, was a group of people, my family, that believed in the fact that they could be better than where they were. And they taught us as their children to do that, to believe in truth and justice and equal opportunity. I went to a school, an inner city school, and that's why I fought so hard for schools. Because I went to inner city schools where you would think that there would be no hope in those schools. And yet they had recruited teachers from Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia, black teachers, who had gone to black colleges, and they brought them to California, and we were a segregated school in South Central Los Angeles. And they taught us to be excellent. They taught us that we would have to be twice as good to be considered. They taught us how to run fast and jump higher than the rest of the world, to be seen, to be expected. And they taught us about dignity and honor and truth and who we were. And so despite the poverty that was there, that lived in our community, it did not live in us. And so as a result of that, I went to all the inner city schools of Los Angeles. And I never had a chance to go to private institutions or any of those things. Got admitted to UCLA, went there as one of only 300 African Americans out of 33,000 others. And it was an alienating experience because it was before affirmative action, before equal opportunity. And so I was admitted to UCLA. And it's interesting that I survived UCLA, not only once, but twice, but 3 times with my doctorate by the time I was 26. I survived San Diego State. I came there at 23 and became a professor at San Diego State University and built the Africana Studies department and was one of the faculty in Women's Studies and Chicano Studies, and worked hard because I believed that we could work hard, that we could show folks that we could basically move forward and demonstrate to the world that we were just as good, if not better than others. And so I always had this dream that we would be the people that our parents had dreamed about. My father knew every day of his life, as hard as he worked, that life was going to be better for his children, that we would have more, that we would have a world that embraced us, that accepted us, that moved us forward, and that we would not have to try to be so hard and twice as good as I had to do, that my grandkids could be accepted for who they are, young people who simply have a dream and an opportunity and have a society that embraces them and allows them to grow and develop. And so as a result of that, that was what I came up with. I came up with the truth and honesty and justice that was important. And I think about that because when I was asked to be Secretary of State by the governor, I didn't want the job. I didn't seek the job. My good friend, I thought at that time, Tony Atkins, pushed my name forward consistently with the governor, that he had to talk to me, that he had to look at me first. And so it was interesting because I said, I don't know if I want to do this. I've done this journey for so long. I've been at the university for 40 years. It's time for a break. It's time to move on to something else. But I remembered one year when I was in Ghana, and I was stopped at the airport, and then I was stopped when I left the airport, and I was stopped on every road that I went through, and it was so unusual because I had been there so many times. And I asked the young man, I said, "What is going on here?" He said, "It's time for our elections, and our president doesn't want to leave. So he's trying to start a coup." And I thought, oh, wow. And I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "Well, he's doing all these things to make us nervous and insecure." He said, "But we are smarter than that." He said, "We are not going to have a coup. We're going to have an election, and we're going to get a new president, and we're going to move forward with our democracy." So when I saw all the conversation in 2020, and I was not Secretary of State, I knew then something was happening in America, something that I should be concerned about. And so when the Union Tribune said to me, "Why are you accepting this position as Secretary of State when you've done such amazing legislation as an assembly member?" I said, "Because this country is in crisis." And he said, "Why would you say that?" I said, "Because it is." I said, "I've seen it around the world. When you start questioning the very foundation of your nation, when you start questioning what you do, when you start questioning everything that you've lived your life to build, you're in crisis. And someone is preying on this crisis that we're in and causing us to lose our faith in this democracy." They didn't pay me much attention. January 6th happened, and they called me. "You said we're in crisis." I said, "Yes, we are. But we're a strong nation. We should believe in what we've always believed in, the orderly transition of power. We believe in truth and justice and honesty. Those are the things that made us strong, not the individuals, but actually our belief in a system and the values and principles of this nation." And so I became Secretary of State because I thought to myself, who but a sharecropper's daughter, who understands what it's like to be able to vote and also understands the perils when you cannot vote, and what happens to communities and what happens to individuals when these things are taken from you. Because I said, I understand it. I've been on both sides of the coin. I've seen the good and I've seen the challenges. And I know that this nation can be stronger and better for what we have to do. And I know we sit in California, and we're very comfortable in California because we don't have all the craziness across the nation. But I need to let you know that I have been on the call all morning with my attorneys and my election people, and on, that there are so many efforts to overturn elections in California. There are so many activities to try to make sure that the Secretary of State does not have the authority to implement California law, that people believe they can set their own date for elections, and that we have elections here and here and here with no consistency, that they really don't have to abide by California law. And we have had so many lawsuits and so many efforts to undermine voting in California. And even though we have folks who are not going to let it happen, and we have attorneys that are fighting every step of the way, and we've spent so much money in the last 3 years on lawsuits, nuisance lawsuits that we're fighting, without documentation, without information, just constant lawsuits every day that I'm confronted with, because someone wants to take away our democracy. I say this to you because as I move forward and as you move forward, I am convinced very strongly that the only way we survive is that we stand strong on what we believe, regardless of who we vote for, that we stand strong on truth, that we believe in justice, that we believe in equality, that we fight for that, because we have spent the last 100 years fighting for a better America, fighting for women's rights, fighting for people of color, fighting for the immigrants that come in this country. We've been fighting for equality and justice for over 100 years. And now we're faced with this issue, and we are sometimes silent, absolutely silent. And that is totally unacceptable. We will never buy our way out of this. The confidence we need that my mother gave to me and my father gave to me comes from you. I want my children to believe in truth. I want them to not believe in folks can lie and lie and lie, and we all know it, and I accept it. I want my children to believe in truth. My mother taught me that if you lie, you'll steal. If you steal, you'll kill. That was her attitude. You could not lie with my mother. If my brother's girlfriend called and said, "Is Don there?" he better get up and run out the house. Because if not, she was going to hand him the phone. And so when the phone rang and it was his phone, he'd jump up, run through the front door, jump in his car, back out the driveway, and head down the street. And she said, "He just left." She taught us the value of telling the truth. It is imperative that we actually tell the truth, regardless of what it is. This is our nation and our time. And I sometimes look around and say, you know, I look at the kings of the world and all of the women who fought and everybody else and all the things that we are so proud of as a nation, that we have been able to work through so many challenges, and we still can. But you have an opportunity now in voting. You have an opportunity in raising your voice. I was never so proud of McCain than when he was involved in the election. And some woman walked up to him and says, "You know that Obama, he's not a citizen." He said, "Stop. Yes, he is. He may be my opponent, but he's honorable and he was born in this country." I thought, oh my God, he has courage to tell the truth. He had courage to stand up when it could have benefited him to just smile and walk away like so many other people do. He told the truth, something as simple as the truth. And so I looked at that moment and I said, you know what? He's always been a good person. He's always been honorable to me. But even more in the face of opportunity to do wrong and to benefit from it, he chose to do right. I'm calling upon you as the Rotary, and I know you guys will ask me some questions soon, to think about where we are as a nation. And I always operate on the premise that wherever it is, I have the responsibility to change a direction that is not right. That I have the responsibility to tell the truth. That I have the responsibility to stand up if no one else does. When I swear people in the office, I tell them as they're taking the oath of office, I say, sometimes you may be the first, you may be the last, or you may be the only person who stands up for the Constitution. But despite that reality, you must stand. And we have to insist upon that from all of our elected officials, that there is no wibble wobble. There is no other thing that we can do other than stand for what is just and what is right. We may disagree on all of the policies that come out, but we must not wibble wobble on our democracy, on our belief in elections, on the sanctity of voting. And we must fight to make sure that we are clear about who we are as a nation. The world is looking to us. Nothing was clearer to me than when I was in Ghana this past November for Thanksgiving. And I went to visit with the Commissioner on Elections. And it was interesting because in her office, it almost looked like my office. She had banners on misinformation, disinformation, all these things that we're battling. She was battling in Ghana. And she said, "We are counting on you, Dr. Weber. We're counting on California. We're counting on that nation to be our North Star. We are fighting to maintain this democracy in Ghana. We're fighting against all the misinformation and disinformation about corruption and things in Ghana." She said, because they're the first, and in many cases, in some areas, the only democracy that exists on that continent. They're the oldest democracy in Africa. And they said they're counting on us to be the North Star. So I hope in some way I've kind of rocked your boat a little bit, made you understand how important you are, because you really are. There are no insignificant people in this battle. That whoever we go with, whatever we end up with, the truth and the justice must be there. Our children are looking to us to see if we tell the truth. They're looking to our politicians to see if they tell the truth. They're looking to our reporters to see whether or not truth is a value that we have in this country. And we will either reap the benefit of it or a whirlwind, depending on how they see us and how they look at us as the people who are guiding us to tell the truth, to stand up for what is right and what is just. and to be that North Star in our families, in our communities, in our associations, and everywhere we go. So I hope you join me, and I know you will, because I see your faces. I hope I've somehow or another made you somewhat uncomfortable, because you were having a wonderful luncheon, and it was a lot of fun. But I want you to know that outside that door, and even in this room, we're counting on you to do what Californians always do, to stand up, to fight for this nation, and despite whatever age we are, whatever, we cannot go down without it. Thank you. 5 minutes of questions. I think there's a person with a microphone. Jordan, okay. And anyone, we have about 6 minutes for questions. I know you guys are real timely people.
Madam Secretary,
Hey, what's up?
so 4.5 months from now, we have the election. And all of the forecasts is that it's going to be a very low turnout election. People don't like their choices at the top. What would you recommend that we do, and what should you be doing to turn that around and get people out to the polls?
Well, we're doing a number of things, and we're doing something called Freedom Summer 2. Some folks may remember Freedom Summer in 1964, where there was an effort to go across the state and the nation to register people and to turn them out to vote. So we're doing a Freedom Summer 2. I went to an event for Fannie Lou Hamer recently to an unveiling, and I realized that what we're missing in this nation right now and in the state is that we have made it easier for people to vote. We've given them lots of places to vote. We've got absentee ballots, so we've done the what, the where, the when, and all that stuff. The thing we have failed to do is the why. What happens when you vote and what happens when you don't vote? And so we've got a movement going on to talk about why you need to vote. Not just because it's your responsibility, but because it is your life. And we want people to understand that when you don't vote, you're discounted. And your absence of voting actually empowers someone else. When we go to high schools, I always tell young people, you have one vote that is just as powerful as your parent, but when you choose not to vote, you have empowered someone else who might even be your enemy. And the young people are shocked because they just think you didn't vote, it just goes away. No, you've increased the number of folks who are opposed to you, and you make it easier for people to win. And so we talk about why you vote, and then I talk about what happens to communities that don't vote. I talk about what happens when I'm representing a district that has a low voter turnout, and how hard it is for me to get things through the school board or through the state or issues because nobody's afraid of my community. And how other communities get things done. Why? Because they vote. And so I talk to them realistically about what power you have when you vote, and that you give up your power by not voting. It just doesn't go away. It makes your community weaker, it makes you weaker, it makes those around you in issues weaker. I talked to college students and said, what would happen if every university student in California actually voted? You wouldn't have as much tuition. You'd have a whole lot of different issues being discussed because you now vote, you participate in the process. So we've got a campaign up and down the state called Freedom Summer 2, where we're talking about those who voted. We got videos for those who want to use them. We got Jerry Brown and others talking about their efforts back in the 60s to actually get people to vote and how hard it was and how difficult it is. I want people to realize that what we stand on is something that we have fought to get, and people have sacrificed for it and given their life for it. It is not just something that should be taken for granted. 100 years ago, this did not exist. Women, it did not exist for women, it did not exist for people of color, and we want everyone to understand what we have done in this country that we must protect. And so we're working hard. We've got a lot of things going on. We're going to be up and down the state. We're doing some things. My director is here in terms of outreach, and we're doing Freedom Summer 2 throughout the summer. And then we are working with high school students and others in communities that folks have never been in to do the turnout. We think the turnout will be great because people turn out for presidential elections, they just do. The primaries, they're not that interested because there wasn't much to fight for in the primaries. but we're pushing for everyone to understand why you vote. Okay?
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
Question, yes.
You knew if Mel asked a question, I had to ask a question, right? So, equal
Wonder
time.
why.
Equal time. My question, Shirley, is whether you're on the right or left of issues, both parties are so polarized right now.
Very much.
And I think we all agree the truth is somewhere in the middle. How do we get voters and citizens to see the middle and not such extreme stance on issues?
I think we do it by insisting that they go to the middle. You know, we go find folks who are going to be in the middle. We go find folks who are going to build the coalitions that are essential for us to grow and develop. You know, one of the things I did in the assembly, and I never think I ever passed a bill that was not bipartisan. Even the hard bills concerning police force and reparations and all those things, they were bipartisans. And I insisted that those who work with me work across both aisles, that I be honest and direct. And I think when we get to the point where we start following people who are not honest and who are not direct, we'll get those people to do it. Most folks are motivated by their own interest. They want to get reelected. If you've noticed how they wibble wobble from one issue to the next, to the next, to the next, and until they find the spot where nobody will jump on them, they basically end up there. We have to insist that our elected officials are honorable, that they're honest, that they basically are going to represent us, and if not, we need to find other ones. The other people who can run for office, who will see the value of it. I get very frustrated when I see people who've told me today the sky is blue and tomorrow it's yellow. I get very frustrated. I'm not going to believe them, I'm not following them. They have to tell me the truth. And we have to go find people who will give us the truth rather than give us the middle conversation. We have to stop following people who are not honest and not direct. And I can say, despite all of the things that I've ever looked at over the years of various parties, I am most disappointed in that fact. Because when I began in the assembly, people were honest. They were direct. Some of my best colleagues are Republicans and Democrats and independents. I mean, they work with me and I work with them. And I think it is imperative that we insist that we have not just politicians wanting who get reelected, but we have people who are actually going to represent us and represent us well. Thank you.
So often during your presentation, Shirley, we heard you talk about truth, didn't we? Justice, honesty, and if you just turn around for a second and look at that sign on the wall, the Rotary four-way test begins with, is it the truth? Say it loud, is it the truth? That's what Rotary is, not only here, but throughout the world. And so Gordon McAnally's Rotary International theme is create hope in the world. And you'll like this coin because it serves as a reminder of the hope for Rotary that you share with us today. But not only Rotary, but also the state of California, the world. We heard a lot about what needs to be done in real quick fashion right now. So I hope you will accept the challenge that she gave you. So this coin is for you. And then also my hope is that, and I know this is important to you as well, is how we can reimagine how Rotary can develop young global leaders, starting in San Diego and throughout the state. And so what we'll be able to do is give in your name the gift of student self-leadership to the high school or high schools of your choice. What she didn't talk about today, too, is she does great work in Africa. Has been doing it for years, going over there, establishing schools and working with especially young girls over there. So this is a global program. It'll be done in your name. Thank you so much for being here on my final official meeting before the roast next week. Shirley, thank you. Let's welcome from the class of 1997, and he was a past 1992 president, Craig Ivanko, to give us today's 30-second parting message, and then ring the bell to adjourn the 47th meeting of our 113th year. I can tell you Craig is the president and CEO of Ivanko Realty Advisors, but it was in 1990 when I was coaching his daughter on an 11 and under team heading to Orlando, Florida for an AAU National Basketball Championship that he and Susan welcomed me into their family. Please welcome Craig Ivanko.
Thank you, Michael, and Dr. Weber, thank you. Right on. Boy. Whew. Before I ring the bell today, I'd like to share two thoughts with you. One is kindness, and the other is it's never wrong to do what is right. Starting with kindness, I heard a short phrase many, many years ago that I think of quite regularly. And that phrase is, kindness is the language that the deaf can hear and the blind can see. It says it all. Regarding it's never wrong to do what's right, I'd like to use our President Mike Brunker as a good example of that. As Mike said, we go back 35 plus years. It's been, our lives kind of came and went, but we always knew each other, cared about the other, and here we are. And I always saw Mike, whether it was the topic was popular or not, he always did what was right. And Mike, I've never said this to you before, but I admire you for that. So let us, when I ring the bell today, to combine those two topics, and let us leave today wanting to do what is right through kindness.